Welcome to the Author's Porch, where every good conversation happens. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride from author to author. We want to give you an experience where you learn and enjoy the conversation. Authors tell you about their journey, you learn about new books, and at the end of the day, you go home with a smile on your face because the Author's Porch is a beacon of light, bringing you home to the family you never knew you had. We hope that you enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Author's Porch, where every great conversation happens. We are super excited and blessed to have Dr. Joanne Intrator. Oh my gosh. I knew it. I was going to get it messed up.
It's always interesting. It's Intrator.
Intrator. I told myself not to enunciate the A the way I was going to, and I still messed it up. Thank you so much for helping me.
There's so many ways it's been pronounced. The reason it's pronounced Intrator was because in Germany, one says Intrator. And when my dad went to the American Army, no one could understand what he was saying. And so he changed it to Intrator because they would be able to spell it with an I-N. And that's the story of it. So you fell into the same thing everybody's previously.
Well, I'm glad that I did, because that is a fantastic story, and I'm so glad that we got to understand that story and the history of it, because your book is such a phenomenal historical moment in time. And when I was reading about the book, so Dr. Joanne Intrator book, Summons to Berlin, talks about her journey, that she went to get property that was stolen from her family by the Nazis when the war was going on. And it also talks about the entire journey of having to fight back and forth, so that that property could be back as a part of their family, so that the restitution could be made after the horrific things that went on back in the war between the Nazis and the Jewish people. Just so everyone's aware that Dr. Intrator is also a psychiatrist of over 30 years who, I was reading that you did this phenomenal study of the brain of psychopaths, and I was like, I need to read that study. So I told myself, stop a minute, you have to get on camera. So that's also on her website, so you guys can go and read that, because I'm a bit of a crime junkie, so I'm always wanting to read little things. But it's fascinating because you took this incredible journey to fight for the justice of your family, and for your dad to take the name and make it where people could understand more. It's like your family has always been at that cusp of fighting and making people understand this is what, you know.
Gosh, CJ, I love how you put that all together just now. That adds to everything for me, because the name actually comes out. It's supposed to be from Latin, to enter, like we were a family that had to keep entering. We started back in Spain during the Inquisition, and then moved across Europe, and the family then wound up in the Austria-Hungarian Empire, and my grandfather went from there to Berlin, where my father was born. So we've always been at the cusp of something. So
Yeah, I was reading on your website, because like I said, I love it, and this might sound a little crazy or creepy, and I don't mean it to be, but I love to read a lot about people and learn so much of history, because I studied a little bit of my family history and found out I was like the 14th cousin of one of the kings of Scotland, and I was like, okay, now I need to read more and stuff like that. And when I am introduced to a new guest or a new person, a new new author. I love authors. I think they're absolutely fascinating people when you can take words and actually put it into something and make another person visualize everything,
Yeah.
right? So I was reading that your family, when you were in when they were in your grandfather was in Germany, you had these businesses, and can you tell us a little more about, 16, if I say this right, Wallstrasse?
Perfect. Well done. Yeah. Well, we didn't. I didn't know about this building. I knew that my grandfather had other properties that were in West Berlin, and West Berlin. Uh, those properties, were there was some sort of restitution. It wasn't really true restitution. We received a little money for the different pieces of property that my dad's family had in Berlin. But when the wall came down, this other building manifested, and this was an enormous building, almost the length of a New York City block. Um, and it was a manufacturing building that, made dresses, made hats, made feathers for hats, books, book bindings, all sorts of different things that were manufactured in the building. And uh, I think my dad knew about it, but my father was dying when the building emerged in our life. And, he had been involved in getting the process going of restitution. And then he passed away. And then
Mm.
I then took it over. It was almost like a dare from him to do this. And his dying words were, "Are you tough enough yet? And do they know who you are?" And I
Oh,
thought he was hallucinating, but he wasn't. He was saying, "You're gonna. I know. You're going to go to Berlin because I know you, because you're fascinated with German history and you study psychopathy. So I know you're going to go to Berlin, but you're going to have a lot of guts to do this." That's what he was
mm,
saying to me, and then he died, and
oh,
there it was. So just to, it's an interesting point and an important point. My share of this very big building, there were a lot of relatives involved, was
mhm,
3.15%. So ultimately, it didn't make it to my son's college fund. So,
right, yeah,
so it turned out to be restitution first of a building. This belonged to my grandfather and a nephew of his, and there were lots of descendants.
mhm,
Um, to build to a restitution of memory and history, because
yeah,
the actual value of the building deteriorated during the period of time while I was looking to find out what the story was. So
mhm,
so this building went into what's called a forced auction towards the end of 1938, which meant my grandfather no longer was paying the mortgage. My grandfather owned the buildings, from the 1920s, somewhere in the 1920s, till this period of time. But he couldn't pay the mortgage. The Nazis came in 33, and his businesses were sacrificed, fairly early,
yeah,
and they didn't have the money to do this. So it seemed to me, you know. It was a straightforward restitution case. But what I found out when I started going is it wasn't so straightforward. I had to prove initially for a year or so that we lost the building because of anti-Semitism, which to me was so
oh,
obvious in 1938. You know,
right,
so many bad things had already occurred, and I didn't even know to the degree to which things had gone so bad for my family and so many families, even before the Nazis officially took over in 33. It was already, dark and gloomy and scary for Jewish owners of property or businesses. Or my father
mhm,
was a lawyer training to be a judge. His career was the first career that was disbanded by the Nazis. It was in April of 1933 because he was a
Wow.
Jew and he had a civil service job. He was no longer able to do it. So they could say, well, you work for the government and we don't want any Jews working for the government. So that
Right.
was it, So this this building was taken over by some people. We don't know the story we didn't know at the time the whole story, but these people were claiming that my grandfather lost the building because he was a poor businessman and not because he was a Jew, which seemed to me completely absurd. And but it
Yeah.
really, unfortunately, it was a complicated case, and it took my 9 years back and forth, while I was working on that research that you mentioned, and
Mhm.
a mother of a small child, fortunately, my husband then, uh, you know, uh, very much believed in what I was doing, and I didn't go more than 4 or 5 days at a time. You
Yeah.
know, I went, half a dozen, 7 times during that period of time. Yeah.
That's it's amazing because you felt compelled to honor your family and say, it's not about the money, it's the principle. It's the principle
Right.
because everything was fine. Our family was fine, and you just came in and took everything from us, and it's not okay.
That's right.
It's not okay
That's
to take our good name and spread it across that we just did bad.
that's something.
It's not okay.
You
Now,
well said. Yeah.
was that building being is that building standing as far as being utilized today, or was that building just kind of? Because I've lived in Germany. I lived there
Oh,
for 3 years from 2013 to 2016, and I lived, by Frankfurt Airport about
right.
45 minutes south.
Right.
And so I never made it to Berlin while I was there, but I do know that obviously there's a lot of buildings that are not being utilized in Germany, well, in the
Right.
United States as well.
Right.
So is it an abandoned building or is it a building that
Oh,
actually
no,
gets
it's
utilized?
it's it's a beautiful building. I mean, even when I saw it in 1993 for the first time, it had been occupied, but
Mhm.
there were with different types of businesses. The German government, it was a measurement company, a bit business. I don't
Okay.
know, I don't know the details of it, but it was emptying out when this restitution, when the wall came down and people were
Mhm.
coming to Berlin to claim property. So I saw it as empty and very grand, and then I saw it, later on, where the people that took the building over after the case was finished did a beautiful job. Lots of different shops in it, bright colors. I was there the last time in 2018 for a
Mm.
celebration of the history of the building and what I had
Wow,
done, and it's really a remarkable place. I'm
that's
happy the
beautiful.
building looks so good and is so vibrant. It's vibrant.
That's good because that's part of your history.
Yeah, yeah,
That's part of not only, one of the wonderful things that I love about Germany is they celebrate every part of their history. They celebrate all of their cultures, and I do love that where I was at in Germany at
yeah.
least. Um, so one of the things that I wonder is how many other buildings are there standing that there are Jewish families that never were paid restitution for the things that were taken from them. Now, have you been in contact with other families or have go ahead.
Well, in 2013, there was a major exhibition in Berlin, of the area that the building is in. And this area was on the edge of a big swath of property that had been razed to the ground by Hitler's architect, Albert Speer. And my family's property was on the edge of it. And there were some other properties as well. So this area is called Berlin Mitte, the true historic center of Berlin. And there were many Jewish-owned buildings that were, destroyed. And right now there's sort of parklands and roads. And then there were some others that still exist. But there were 5 families that they the creator of the exhibit found 5 Jewish families, and they were not able to get restitution. They were sort of told similar things that I was told in the beginning. The bottom line is that there are enormous numbers of properties that existed in this area that were owned by Jews, and the percentage of Jews that got restitution is somewhere between 5 and 7%. So it's not much. Yeah.
So it seems like there was a lot of, we don't want to revisit the past and figure it out. It's kind of something that happened. We've got monuments to what has happened. Let's leave it there and be done with it.
Right. You're right on the nose with that, CJ. And they've done a fabulous job with monuments and honor, and I think the current people that are living in Germany are making tremendous efforts to repair the past as possible. One can't fix this, but at least to honor what's happened and take responsibility. It's 3 generations away from what happened. So when I was in Berlin, there were people around that were still had Nazi experiences or were Nazis. I didn't know who or what. And then since I was in East Berlin, so many of them, they lived under under the Deutsche Democratic Republic. It was communist, and they had the Stasi, which was an enormous organization that spied on people and terrorized people. So there's a whole group of Germans that lived under the Nazis, did not get a democracy the way West Germany did, but moved from the Nazis to the communist regime. So there was a lot of adjustments that the Germans had to go through, and still go through to this current day.
And so you wrote the book Summons to Berlin.
Yeah.
And it is your memoir of going through this process.
Right.
What are some of the highlights that you can share with us? Some of the things that you would want to tell people before reading the book that they can expect?
Right. Well, I write it as a psychiatrist, because and I am open about my own issues, going to Germany and walking amongst people that were dead, and amongst living people that had connections to what happened in the past. So I was scared. And so I have had a lifelong issue with anxiety, really almost born with it. And I don't know how much of that is, that comes down the generations as a Jew, how much it has to do with both parents fleeing the Holocaust,
Wow.
So I don't know, but I had to live with myself and face my own demons over there. And I'm open about that because I feel I have something to say, and I think we all struggle with our anxieties. And so, I want people to know that one can be brave and anxious at the same time. So,
Amen.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of what I do in my practice too. I try to help people see both parts of themselves. So, so I'm walking through. A lot of it's me walking through Berlin and looking at things and opining about the history in certain areas and what happened in those particular spots during the war. So I actually spend a day in a very barren, depressing concentration camp on the 50th anniversary of the liberation of Sachsenhausen, was the name of the camp, by the Russians in 1945. I went there. I hired a car and driver, an English-speaking driver, to take me there because I felt I was losing my courage to do what I needed to do. It was the middle of the winter, and this was a time when, you know, this concentration camp looks different now than it did then. Then it looked, you know, now everything is cleaned up and there are walkways.
Yeah.
And so I was, it was, you know, it was rain and ice, you know, just the kind of weather that you get in the Northeast that you don't like, you know. It was very cold and rainy and snowy, but I wanted to go to honor this important day. So I walk around and think about what happened there. So the book it does go into the dark a bit, you know. It does go to places in the history of the Nazis in Europe and says what happens. And I do it both for my audience as a teacher, but also for myself, sort of to, you know, wake myself up. Come on, Joanne, you've got to do this. This is really important. So I use the history to straighten myself up, you know, and scare myself into doing the right thing, which was following through. I wanted to follow this thing through, even though it was getting harder and harder on me, and I was having so many obstacles. People wanted me to negotiate with the other parties that claimed the building was theirs, that we didn't lose it because of anti-Semitism. Everybody wanted me to sit down at the table and agree, and I just wanted to know what happened. And so I was persistent, but it took a lot out of me, and my marriage may have suffered, you know. And I go into, you know, it was tough, you know. It was tough, and I had a small child in the house who at one point said to me, "Mom, I came back from one trip, and it just didn't go well at all. I got nowhere, and I was disappointed in myself." And he said to me, "Mom, well, I have to go to Berlin after you die." And I said, "Oh my God, Ben,
Wow.
you know, that's not going to happen." You know, and then I realized I've got to do this to just get it done. Because otherwise, you know, when I die, he inherits whatever it is, like this case. Who needs that, right? I mean, you don't want to have to inherit a case like that. I wanted to take care of it, you know. So
it's been 50 plus years that the war where the Nazis, you know, did the genocide on the Jewish people.
Right.
And generations have already been affected by this, and you have this sense of urgency so that it's no longer going to be handed down to another generation to take control and to get restitution for what has already happened to so many generations. You have Jewish people that had tattoos on them. You have people that have never seen family members again, never been given back the things that was taken from them. And you have this sense of urgency to say, I will not hand down this burden to my child.
Right.
And you want people to feel that on every level. You want them to feel it as a mother. You want them to feel it as a child of a Holocaust survivor. You want them to feel it as a psychiatrist, as a human being. That just gives me chills because there's so many levels that you're telling this story on, and it's that it sounds absolutely phenomenal. And we have a question from the audience that says, "What do you want people to take away after reading this book? What is your biggest takeaway for the general public?"
I want us all to pay attention to what's going on in the world,
Yeah.
and not to be so frightened, but to be grounded and own it and say, this is what the reality is, and we all need to face it and be brave, and have a voice, and not to be fooled by people that try to get take advantage of people's fear and chaos that occurs throughout the world right now.
Yeah.
Climate change, all of these things that are affecting the world, a wars going on right now. Masses of people are moving around the world. It's the largest migration of both human beings and animals that have ever existed on this earth. And we have to, look this in the face and face that our lives will change and our children's lives will change. And we must vote. What I mean vote is, I mean literally vote, of course, is important, but sort of vote with our hearts and our minds, and do our best. So that's what I want people to take from it, and that anxiety is not a disease. Obviously, extreme anxiety is. Anxiety helps us be alert. We need to be alert. It helps us be present. If we had no anxiety, we wouldn't be present. We would be sort of in la out of it, So we want to manage the amount of anxiety we experience, because too much anxiety, you're not present either, So
True.
But anxiety has a bad rap. We need a perfect amount. We need a certain amount to stay present, and of course we're afraid. We're always afraid of things that we can't control or understand. But that means we have to even pay more attention. So that's one thing. I want us to understand that human beings are capable of doing terrible things to each other. And it's not evil, and it's not the devil. It's part of our history, and we've done it in our own country, and it's been done all over the world. And we just have to face these things.
Yes, and I think it's very important to have the conversations, because once we try to hide what has happened or what is happening, it's because not we, but whoever's trying to hide it, it's because they want it to either happen again, or they're continuing along that same pattern of behavior,
Exactly.
whether overtly or covertly.
Exactly.
And that's why they want to hide it. So in my opinion, which I'm not an authority on anything, I only, I took psychology in school. I'm not anywhere near you where you are, Dr. Intrator. Did I say that right again?
Call me Joanne.
Joanne, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really
You're CJ and I'm Joanne. We're two women.
Thank you so much.
Having a conversation.
Thank you so much. But for me, when somebody tries to hide something, they don't want to talk about it. They want to kind of be quiet about it. It's because they want to continue along that same pattern of behavior. For me, that's just my novice opinion on the situation.
It's pretty accurate, though. It's pretty accurate. There's always been a struggle, around authoritarianism. We're human beings are struggle with the fact that we know that we're going to die at some point, and we get frightened by these things, and we do things to keep ourselves from facing the fact that we may have brilliant minds, but our bodies will come to an end at some point. And rather than face the dilemma that we're in, which is to face that and to live as fully as we can, we get scared and we let other things take over. We let money things take over. We let somebody else take the power, because we're afraid to face our responsibilities towards ourselves. And, now
Mhm.
with all the social media, people they kind of get taken away and they lose their
Yeah.
agency. And it's quite easy for strong, I put strong in parenthesis, the strong man type of leader to
Mhm.
take advantage of us. So, and that's kind of what I mean by being present or being grounded, and and
Yeah. Well, I I I think it's phenomenal that you stood up for what had happened all those years ago, and you
yeah,
said it's stopping here. I
right,
will no longer allow those who are going to try to take over just because they have the louder voice.
that's
They
right,
have more people standing behind them. They may have more money in their pocket,
right,
but I may be one person, but I have a voice, and I'm no longer going to allow that voice to sit there without being heard. And
right,
you took back that authority over your own destiny, and you got
exactly,
that restitution.
exactly,
And and I love the title, Summons to Berlin. You were summoned
yes,
there
yeah,
to back to the very place where it all started.
exactly. That's well put. Absolutely, CJ.
And when does your book come out?
1st of August. So I just saw my cover of the book the other day, and it looks beautiful,
Nice.
very strong. And getting everything ready for it, and talking to you and other people, and doing some other writing on the side as well. I've written a couple things for Psychology Today. I have a blog there. Not, yeah, and I write about films, a little bit. I had a film background before I went back to school to become a doctor. And so, and I have my wonderful psychiatric practice that really
That well, I'm
enriches me.
sure yeah, I'm sure that that keeps you busy because we've all, are needing a little bit after COVID, a lot of people are seeking,
Terrible.
assistance. Yeah, it really took its toll on a lot of people. And, so it comes out in August, but I noticed that you had your blog. Are you still blogging on your website?
Yes, yes. I'll be doing more about that. That right now there are a lot of interviews with other writers and
Okay.
people that are on there, and reviews that I've done. And I'm going to link my Psychology Today uh, blog onto the website, which some people will find quite interesting, because I am interested in psychopaths. And so I've done some stuff on movies and psychopaths which I'll move on to the blog as well. So,
Yeah, I'm actually when we get off here, I'm gonna go back to your website and read the article that you have linked on, I think it's your bio, because I didn't have time to read it before we got over here. I was like, "I
yeah,
gotta go read that."
yeah,
And what is your, here, I'm gonna pop in. I actually still have it open, so I'm sorry, everybody. You're gonna hear me click just a couple of times here because I wanna put, the website in here so you guys can
oh,
go over and check out, Joanne's page. And also, you can click follow so that you can get the updates when the book is available. And for those who are listening to the podcast, whenever I
yeah,
get that on the platform, it's joanneintrator.com. It's Joanneintrator.com. Is there any other platforms you want to tell our audience about that they can follow you or connect with
on
you on?
Facebook. I'm on Facebook, but I'm not great with these handles, so I have to probably sell. I'm not great with the social media, but I'm on Twitter and I'm on Facebook, and I've got to get that information to you, and I promise I will. Yeah.
Okay, if it's connected to your, website, then they can get from there. If
Oh,
it's
that's
not connected to
wonderful.
your website, then, Lindsay can send it to me, and I'll
Oh,
get
that's
it all here
wonderful.
on our
Good.
pages.
That's very, very good.
Awesome. Well, I've had such a great time talking to you, getting to know more about Summons to Berlin, as well as, everything that we've talked about. So I told you Daisy was gonna come up here. She's turning around trying
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
and and, I can't wait till the book comes out because
I know.
I really wanna read it. It sounds like a phenomenal journey.
You will be a good reader for the book. You really will, because you talk on so many different levels about things that I think are in my book. I think of my book sometimes as like uh, like I'm trying to think of the word, when you braid something and make a quilt out of it, because there's so
Mhm.
many different strands. Whether
Yes.
it's the psychological or the historical. You know,
Mhm.
I try to bring these all together. Yeah.
Yeah, you wove it sounds like it's been woven very well together.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. Is
Yeah.
there anything else you wanna tell our audience before we head out for the night?
I just wish everybody well, and I wish them, if those that are taking off for the holiday coming up, I wish everybody well, and let's get through these times together, and be as hopeful but as realistic as we can be.
Amen, definitely. Well, Joanne, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for doing what you did, for going over there and showing them, not them, that's the wrong word, showing everyone that there is hope, that you can still do the right thing and it can pay off.
Yeah. Yes.
And I know that, look, thinking about it, I could see your dad and your grandfather going, "That a girl, that a girl." That's why we gave her that task, because we knew that she had that gumption, that grit.
Beautiful, CJ. I love the way you think. I really love that. Thank you. I'm so happy you invited me.
Yeah, I loved this tonight. It was what I needed in my soul tonight to hear, to listen to, and I can't wait for the book to come out. I'll send Lindsay an email and ask her to remind me when the book comes out. If she can just send me an email when it comes out, if I can be on that distribution list, because I definitely want to read it. But you guys make sure that you go to Joanne Intrator's site and check out the book Summons to Berlin. It comes out in August. It's her memoir of her going over to Berlin and getting restitution for a property that was taken away from her family during the Holocaust, and you will definitely not be disappointed. Have a great night, everybody. Joanne, thank you very much for being here tonight, and we'll catch you later.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.